In the heart of the city, a quaint cafe buzzed with life. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the laughter and chatter that filled the space. Clara, a striking woman with vibrant red hair, sat at a corner table, her eyes sparkling with mirth as she shared a joke with her friend, Sarah. The two were deep in conversation, discussing everything from the latest book releases to their dreams and aspirations. Clara's laughter rang like music, drawing the attention of several patrons, who couldn't help but smile at her infectious joy. Before we step into this story, I want you to know this: every like, every subscription helps these romances exist. If you enjoy intense love, quiet tension, and emotional stories, please support this channel. Now, let's begin. As they sipped their lattes, the cafe's atmosphere felt warm and inviting, a refuge from the bustling streets outside. Clara had carved out this little oasis for herself, a place where she could escape and indulge in her passion for reading and writing. She often visited the cafe to jot down ideas for her stories, feeling inspired by the eclectic crowd that surrounded her. "I swear, if I can just finish this chapter, I might actually enter that writing contest," Clara exclaimed, her enthusiasm palpable. "Just make sure it's not about a mafia boss or something cliché," Sarah teased, nudging her playfully. Clara rolled her eyes, a smirk forming on her lips. "Oh, come on. You know I wouldn't write something so predictable. My characters have depth." Just as Clara was about to elaborate on her latest plot twist, the cafe door swung open suddenly, causing a hush to fall over the room. A tall figure stepped inside, instantly commanding attention. Luca, the Italian mafia boss, entered with an air of authority that made the light-hearted chatter fade into a tense silence. His dark, tailored suit hugged his broad shoulders, and his piercing gaze swept the room, landing on Clara. In that moment, her laughter faded, replaced by a flutter of uncertainty. There was something about him, his presence was magnetic yet intimidating. Clara felt her heart race as he approached the counter, his voice low and smooth as he ordered a coffee. The barista seemed slightly flustered, her cheeks tinged with a blush as she fumbled with the order. Clara couldn't help but steal glances at him, captivated by the aura of danger that surrounded him. She had heard whispers about Luca in the city, stories of his power and influence, of the respect he commanded. But as he turned and caught her eye, she felt a strange connection, a pull that both excited and frightened her. Before she could process her thoughts, Luca's gaze darkened as he noticed her. There was a flicker of recognition, an intensity that made Clara's breath hitch. She quickly looked away, focusing on her friend, who was now staring at her with wide eyes. "Do you know who that is?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Clara nodded, her heart still racing. "Yeah, he's the mafia boss, right?" Sarah leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He's dangerous, Clara. You need to be careful." Clara rolled her eyes, trying to dismiss the warning. "Please, I'm just here for coffee and conversation. I can handle myself." But the truth was, she felt a mixture of apprehension and intrigue. What would a man like Luca want with someone like her? Just then, as if sensing her thoughts, Luca took a step closer to their table. His presence loomed over them, and Clara felt the weight of his gaze. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth. Clara's heart raced, and she exchanged a glance with Sarah, who looked like she was about to burst from excitement. No, it's not," Clara managed to reply, her voice steadier than she felt. He took a seat across from her, his eyes locked onto hers. "I couldn't help but notice your laughter," he said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his lips. "It's refreshing." Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks, and she cursed herself for the sudden vulnerability. "Thanks," she replied, trying to maintain her composure. "It's just a conversation with a friend." Luca's gaze shifted to Sarah, who was still wide-eyed and clearly starstruck. "And you are?" he inquired, his voice still smooth but now curious. "I'm Sarah," she said, almost breathless. "Clara's best friend." Luca nodded, his attention returning to Clara. "You seem like an interesting person. What do you do?" Clara hesitated, caught off guard by the unexpected attention. "I work at a local bookstore and write on the side," she replied, trying to sound nonchalant. Luca leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her heart race. "A writer," he mused. "I find that intriguing. What do you write about?" Before Clara could respond, the cafe door swung open once more, and another patron entered, breaking the momentary tension. Clara took a breath, reminding herself to stay grounded. "Just stories, really." "Fiction mostly," she managed to say. "Nothing too exciting." Luca's expression shifted slightly, curiosity dancing in his eyes. "I doubt that. Every story has its own thrill." As he spoke, Clara felt a current of electricity between them, something unspoken and powerful. She had no idea where this encounter would lead, but she felt a magnetic pull toward him, an uncharted territory she was both eager and terrified to explore. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted again as Luca turned his attention to the entrance. "She's with me," he stated firmly, his voice low and commanding. Clara glanced over her shoulder, confusion swirling within her. The cafe had returned to its lively chatter, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to unfold. What happens when a common woman crosses paths with a man who holds the power of life and death? Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As Clara settled into her usual routine at the local bookstore, the familiar scent of aged paper and fresh ink enveloped her like a warm embrace. With her auburn hair tied back in a loose bun, she meticulously arranged the shelves, her thoughts drifting to her dreams of becoming a writer. The afternoons were often filled with the soothing sound of pages turning and the soft footsteps of customers browsing. It was a simple life, but it was hers, and for that, she felt grateful. Her best friend, Sarah, often joined her during lunch breaks, bringing laughter and light to the quiet sanctuary of books. They shared stories, dreams, and frustrations. Sarah was Clara's anchor. It was during one of these afternoons, filled with giggles and light-hearted banter, that Clara first mentioned the infamous Luca. She had heard whispers about him in the city, the powerful Mafia boss whose very name sent shivers down the spines of many. "I think he's more of a legend than a reality," Clara had laughed, dismissing the stories as mere tales meant to entertain. But her laughter faded as she recalled the encounter at the cafe. The memory of his piercing gaze sent a shiver down her spine. "He's dangerous, Clara. You have to be careful," Sarah had warned, her eyes wide with concern. Clara had brushed it off, trying to convince herself that she could handle whatever came her way. Yet, deep down, she felt a flicker of intrigue about him, a curiosity that was hard to ignore. Days passed, and while Clara continued to immerse herself in her work, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the last she would see of Luca. He was a constant whisper in her mind, a shadow lurking at the edge of her thoughts. Despite her reluctance, a connection was forming, one that made her heart race and her palms sweat. One evening, as she was closing up the bookstore, she couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to be close to someone like him. The next week, Clara decided to attend a local literary event, hoping to find inspiration among fellow writers and readers. As she mingled with the crowd, her nerves began to settle. She chatted with a few familiar faces, sharing her thoughts on the latest novels and upcoming authors. Just as she started to feel comfortable, a sudden hush fell over the room, and she turned to see Luca entering, flanked by a couple of men. He exuded an aura of power that was impossible to ignore, drawing everyone's gaze as he moved through the crowd. Clara's heart pounded in her chest as she watched him approach, his dark suit tailored to perfection, accentuating his tall, lean frame. She felt a rush of heat to her cheeks as their eyes met, sending an electric jolt through her. "What am I doing here?" she thought, her mind racing. Before she could think of a way to escape, Luca was upon her, his presence overwhelming yet oddly comforting. "Clara," he greeted her, his voice smooth like silk. "I didn't expect to see you here." There was a hint of amusement in his tone, and Clara struggled to maintain her composure. "Just looking for inspiration," she replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "And you?" "I'm always looking for new stories," he said, leaning slightly closer, his eyes locked onto hers. Clara could feel the intensity of his gaze, and for a moment, the noise of the event faded away. It was just the two of them, lost in a conversation that felt charged with unspoken promises. "You right?" Luca asked, genuine curiosity evident in his expression. Clara nodded, feeling a mix of pride and uncertainty. "I do, mostly fiction. Just short stories, nothing major yet." His smile was warm, yet there was something enigmatic about him. "Every story is important, Clara. They have the power to change lives." His words hung in the air, resonating with her aspirations. In that moment, Clara felt seen, but she was unsure of how to navigate this new territory. "You're quite the philosopher," she teased lightly, trying to ease the tension. Luca chuckled, his voice low and inviting. "I've learned a thing or two about life. It's not always as simple as it seems." Just then, a group of people approached, interrupting their conversation. Clara felt the familiar flutter of anxiety in her stomach, the reality of their worlds colliding weighing heavily on her. But as the group engaged Luca, she couldn't help but steal glances at him, captivated by his charisma and the way he effortlessly commanded attention. Despite the laughter and chatter around them, her thoughts were consumed by their brief connection. As the evening wore on, Clara felt a sense of longing mixed with apprehension. She had heard stories about men like him, men with power, men who could change lives, but not always for the better. The duality of her attraction and fear left her in a whirlwind of emotions. But I still didn't know who he really was, she thought, the weight of uncertainty settling in her chest. The event eventually came to a close, and Clara felt a pang of disappointment as she watched Luca mingle with others, his laughter mingling with the music in the background. Just as she was about to leave, she caught his eye once more. He approached her with a confident stride, his expression unreadable. "We should talk more, Clara," he said, a hint of something deeper in his voice. Her breath caught in her throat as she nodded, feeling drawn to him despite the warnings echoing in her mind. "I'd like that," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. And in that moment, Clara knew she was stepping into a world far beyond her own, a world that would change everything. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As Clara navigated the aftermath of her encounter with Luca, the world around her seemed to vibrate with an energy that was both exhilarating and frightening. The buzz of the literary event faded into a distant hum as she replayed their conversation in her mind, analyzing every word, every glance. The way he had looked at her, with a mix of curiosity and interest, left her both flattered and apprehensive. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper lurking beneath the surface, something she wasn't yet ready to uncover. In the following days, Clara returned to her routine at the bookstore, but her thoughts were often consumed by the magnetic figure she had met. She found herself daydreaming about his deep voice and the way he seemed to command the room with his mere presence. Her writing took a new turn, inspired by the intensity she felt during their brief interaction. She began to weave stories of danger and allure, characters like Luca dancing through her imagination, challenging her usual narratives. As the sun began to set one evening, casting a warm glow through the bookstore window, Clara was arranging a new display when the bell above the door chimed. Her heart skipped a beat as she turned to see Luca stepping inside, a confident stride marking his approach. He wore a tailored black coat that accentuated his broad shoulders, his dark hair slightly tousled, giving him an effortlessly handsome look. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she wondered what had brought him back. "Clara," he greeted, his voice low and smooth, sending shivers down her spine. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "No, not at all," she replied, attempting to maintain her composure. "Just setting up some new arrivals." She gestured toward the neatly stacked books, but her mind was racing, filled with questions about his intentions. "I was hoping to see you again," he said, stepping closer, the intensity of his gaze locking onto hers. Clara felt the familiar rush of warmth spread through her. "I've been thinking about our conversation." "Really? About stories?" she asked, trying to play it cool, though her heart raced. "More than that," he replied, leaning against the counter, his presence both intimidating and magnetic. You have a way of looking at the world that intrigues me. I could use someone like you. Clara raised an eyebrow, a mix of excitement and caution swirling within her. Someone like me? For what exactly? Luca's lips curled into a half-smile, his eyes sparkling with mischief. I have a project in mind, something that requires a fresh perspective. I thought perhaps you'd be interested in collaborating. Her mind whirled with possibilities, but Clara hesitated. What kind of project? She asked, suspicion creeping in. She had heard enough about men in power to know that things were rarely as straightforward as they seemed. It's related to literature and community outreach, he explained, his tone sincere. I'm looking to support local writers and foster new talent. I think you could help me curate an event that showcases their work. Clara felt a mixture of relief and intrigue. It was a noble cause, and the idea of being part of something bigger excited her. That sounds interesting, she admitted, her curiosity piqued. But why me? There must be plenty of other people who could do this. Because I believe you have a unique vision, Luca replied, the sincerity in his eyes disarming her. And I appreciate your passion. I want to work with someone who understands the power of a story. Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from outside, interrupting their conversation. Clara's heart raced as she glanced toward the window, the bustling street now filled with shouting voices and chaos. Luca's demeanor shifted instantly. He straightened, the protective aura around him intensifying. Stay here, he commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. Wait, what's happening? Clara asked, anxiety creeping in as she watched him move toward the door. Just stay put, he reiterated, his eyes scanning the street outside. She felt a surge of panic, torn between wanting to follow him and the instinct to obey. As he stepped outside, Clara's heart pounded in her chest. She caught glimpses of him speaking to several men who were clearly agitated. Her mind raced with concern for him. Who were they? What was happening? She leaned against the counter, trying to catch snippets of their conversation, but the noise drowned out any clarity. Minutes felt like hours as she paced the small space of the bookstore, anxiety coiling tightly in her stomach. Finally, Luca returned, his expression unreadable. It's nothing to worry about, he said, though the tension in his voice suggested otherwise. Nothing to worry about? Clara echoed, incredulity lacing her tone. It looked pretty intense out there. Luca paused, running a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. Just some business I need to handle. It's complicated, but it won't affect you. Clara's chest tightened. I don't want to be involved in anything dangerous. I have my own life, my own plans. I understand, he said, his voice softening. But sometimes, these worlds collide in ways we don't expect. Just know that I'll do everything to keep you safe. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable, and despite her fear, she felt drawn to him. What do you mean by that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Luca stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. I care about your safety. I don't want anything to happen to you because of my world. Clara's breath caught in her throat. There was a vulnerability in his expression that contradicted his powerful persona. For the first time, she saw a glimpse of the man behind the Mafia boss, a man capable of feeling and caring deeply. Why do you care? She found herself asking, the question hanging heavily in the air. Because, he said, his voice low and sincere, you make me want to be better. You're unlike anyone I've ever met. The weight of his words settled over her, igniting a spark of hope amidst the uncertainty that had clouded her mind. Clara felt a rush of warmth spread through her, but before she could respond, Luca's phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. He glanced at the screen, frustration flashing across his face. I have to take this, he said, but the regret in his voice was palpable. We'll talk more about the project soon. Of course, Clara replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As he stepped outside to take the call, Clara couldn't help but wonder what she had just stumbled into. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As Clara stood there, processing Luca's words. The air around them thickened with an unspoken tension. The reality of his world began to settle uneasily in her mind, mingling with the attraction she felt for him. Just moments ago, they had been discussing literature and dreams, and now, she was being pulled into the dangerous currents of his life. The sounds of chaos outside were a stark reminder of the other side of the man who had captivated her. "Clara, I need to know you'll be safe," Luca said, his voice steady but laced with an urgency that sent a shiver down her spine. "I can't guarantee that my life won't spill into yours, and if it does, I want you prepared." Prepared? For what? The question echoed in her mind. She took a deep breath, attempting to steady her racing heart. "I don't want to be part of your world, Luca. I have my own life. I'm just a bookstore manager, for heaven's sake." "You underestimate your value," he replied, stepping closer, his eyes piercing into hers. "You have a strength that draws people in, and I want to protect that." Clara's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: excitement, fear, curiosity. She wanted to believe him, to trust him, but the stakes seemed impossibly high. And what if I don't want to be protected? What if I want to stay out of this? He hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face. "You may think you can choose, but once you're involved, it's not just about you anymore. I need you to understand that." The weight of his words hung between them, creating an invisible barrier that felt both suffocating and exhilarating. In that moment, Clara glimpsed the depth of his world, a world where decisions were made in shadows, and loyalties could be deadly. "Luca, I don't know if I can be part of this," she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm not equipped to handle the kind of danger that follows you." He reached out, gently grasping her wrist, the warmth of his touch igniting a spark that sent her heart racing. "That's exactly why I want you close. I see something in you, Clara, a fire that can't be extinguished by fear. I want to help you unleash it." His words were intoxicating, and Clara felt the pull of his magnetism, the promise of adventure and passion. "But what if I get hurt?" she countered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then I'll be there to catch you," he stated with unwavering conviction, his gaze unwavering. "And I'll make sure you never fall alone." The sincerity in his voice sent a torrent of warmth rushing through her, battling the chill of fear that enveloped her. She felt drawn to him, the dangerous allure of his world tempting her in ways she never expected. But before she could respond, another loud crash echoed from the street, jolting them both back to the present. Luca's demeanor shifted instantly, the protective aura around him intensifying as he glanced toward the door. "Stay inside, Clara. I mean it." Her heart raced as he moved toward the door, his tall figure exuding a commanding presence that made her heart flutter and her mind swirl. "What's happening?" she called after him, her anxiety spilling over. "Just stay put," he reiterated, his eyes scanning the street outside with a fierce intensity. She watched helplessly as he stepped out, her heart pounding in her chest. The chaos outside grew louder, and she pressed her hands against the counter, straining to hear snippets of the conversation. "Luca, keep your head down," came a voice she didn't recognize. "Get back," another shouted, and Clara's stomach dropped. What was happening? Who were these people? She felt a surge of panic, torn between wanting to rush outside and the instinct to obey his command. Time felt suspended as she paced the small bookstore, her mind racing with worry. When Luca finally returned, his expression was a mask of determination that sent a chill down her spine. "It's nothing to worry about," he said, but the tension in his voice betrayed the calm facade. "Nothing to worry about?" Clara echoed incredulously, her own anxiety palpable. "That looked dangerous, Luca." He ran a hand through his hair, visibly frustrated. "Just some business I need to handle. Trust me, it won't affect you." "Trust? I don't even know what I'm supposed to be trusting you about," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "I don't want to be swept up in your world of violence and chaos." "Believe me, I don't want that for you either," he replied, his voice softening. "But sometimes, these worlds collide in ways we don't expect. Just know that I'll do everything I can to keep you safe." For a moment, Clara was taken aback by the earnestness in his eyes. The walls around her heart began to crumble, and she felt a flicker of something, affection, perhaps? Or was it just the thrill of the unknown? "Why do you care so much?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because," he said, stepping closer, his gaze penetrating. "You've shown me a glimpse of something real, something worth protecting. I don't want to lose that." Clara's breath caught in her throat, and she could feel the weight of his words settle in her heart. Just as she was about to respond, Luca's phone buzzed, slicing through the moment. He glanced at the screen, frustration flickering across his face. "I have to take this," he said, regret evident in his tone. "We'll talk more about the project soon." "Sure," she replied, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. As he stepped outside to take the call, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of a precipice, one that could lead to either thrilling heights or devastating falls. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. As tension escalated, Clara could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. Luca's fierce gaze met hers, a silent understanding passing between them. They were no longer just a bookstore employee and a mysterious mafia boss. They were two people caught in a storm, and the world around them faded into the background. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. The gravity of the question hung in the air, pulling her in closer. Clara hesitated, taking a moment to consider the dangers that lurked beyond the walls of the store. She had grown accustomed to the safety of her predictable routine, yet here was Luca, challenging her to step into the unknown. "I don't know what I'm ready for," she admitted, her heart racing as she searched his eyes for reassurance. "But I want to be with you." His expression softened, and for a brief moment, the hard edges of his persona melted away. "Then trust me," he urged, his hand brushing against hers, igniting a spark that sent shivers down her spine. "I'll protect you, no matter what it takes." Clara felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with fear as she nodded, her resolve strengthening. It was a leap of faith, a step into a world where danger was a constant companion. Just then, a loud crash shattered the moment, pulling them both back to reality. The sound reverberated through the street outside, and Clara's heart dropped as she instinctively moved closer to Luca, seeking the comfort of his presence. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice firm as he stepped toward the door. "I'll handle this." "Luca, wait," she called after him, panic rising in her chest. But he was already outside, his tall figure silhouetted against the dim streetlight. Clara pressed her palms against the cool counter, straining to hear the muffled sounds of chaos unfolding just beyond the door. A group of men had gathered outside, their voices harsh and aggressive, and Clara's stomach twisted in knots as she tried to make out their words. "You think you can just take what's mine?" one of them shouted, and she recognized the tension in his tone, a threat laced with anger. "Get back." Luca's voice cut through the noise, commanding and powerful. She could see him standing tall, unyielding as he faced the group, but something deeper stirred in her, the fierce protector she had glimpsed before. Clara's heart raced as she felt the pull of her instincts. She couldn't just stand by while he faced danger alone. Without thinking, she rushed to the door, her body moving on its own accord. "Luca," she shouted, desperation lacing her voice. He turned just in time to see her stepping outside, her red hair catching the light of the street lamp. "What are you doing?" he snapped, but there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "I'm not leaving you to face this alone," she insisted, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "We're in this together." A moment of uncertainty passed between them, and in that instant, the world around them seemed to freeze. The men hesitated, their gazes shifting from Luca to Clara, and she felt a surge of determination settle within her. She wasn't just an observer anymore, she was a part of this world, and she would stand by Luca's side. "Stay back, Clara," Luca warned, his voice low, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his muscles tightened. "No," she replied firmly, stepping closer to him. "If you think I'll just watch while you fight this battle, you're mistaken." The men outside exchanged glances, surprised by her unexpected bravery. Clara could feel the weight of their scrutiny, but it only fueled her resolve. She was tired of being afraid, tired of watching life happen from the sidelines. "Is this the woman you've been hiding?" one of the men sneered, a mocking smile on his lips. "She looks more like a liability than an asset." Luca's eyes narrowed, and Clara could see the protective fire igniting within him. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," he growled, stepping forward, his presence commanding. "You want to challenge me? You'll have to go through her first." She felt a swell of pride at his words, a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. It was exhilarating to be seen as more than just a pawn in someone else's game. But the thrill was short-lived as one of the men lunged forward, fists raised. Without thinking, Clara moved to the side, her instincts kicking in. She felt Luca's arm wrap around her waist, pulling her safely behind him. "Get back," he shouted, his voice a roar. In that instant, everything shifted. The confrontation escalated into chaos, with Luca stepping forward to confront the men as they advanced. Clara watched, heart pounding, as he defended her, every movement precise and powerful. She could see the danger in his eyes, the quick calculations he made as he navigated the unfolding conflict. "Luca," she cried out, fear tightening her throat as she watched him take control of the situation. He was a force of nature, but the stakes were higher than ever. In that moment, she realized just how much she cared for him, how deeply she had fallen into this world of violence and danger. "Stay close to me," he commanded, and Clara nodded, her heart racing. She felt the tension in the air, the charged energy that crackled around them. As the confrontation reached its peak, Luca's voice rang out above the chaos. "You think you can intimidate me? I've faced worse than you without breaking a sweat. Now, walk away while you still can." Clara could feel the strength in his words, the unwavering confidence that radiated from him. But deep down, she knew the truth. This was just the beginning, and their journey was far from over. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments, she thought as she stood by his side, ready to face whatever came next. The moment felt electric, charged with possibilities, and as the world around them shifted, Clara knew she would never be the same again. The tension that had been building between Clara and Luca transformed into something more tangible as they faced the reality of their situation. The aftermath of that chaotic confrontation left them both shaken but undeniably closer. Clara, still reeling from the adrenaline, found herself in Luca's luxury penthouse, a space that exuded power and elegance. The room was filled with soft light, casting shadows that danced across the walls, creating an intimate atmosphere that felt almost surreal after the turmoil they had faced together. Luca stood by the window, his silhouette framed against the city skyline, muscles tense and jaw clenched. Clara watched him, the way the soft glow highlighted the lines of his face, revealing the vulnerability he often kept hidden from the world. She took a deep breath, letting the silence envelop them, unsure of how to bridge the gap that had widened between them during the chaos. "What happens now?" Clara finally asked, her voice breaking the stillness. She stepped closer, wanting to close the distance but unsure of how he would react. Luca turned to her, his gaze piercing yet softened by something unspoken. "Now, we figure out how to deal with the fallout," he replied, his voice low and steady. "They'll come after us, Clara. I need you to understand what that means." The weight of his words settled heavily in the air. Clara nodded, her heart racing as she processed the implications of what he was saying. "I can handle it," she asserted, her voice firmer than she felt. "I won't be a liability." He studied her for a moment, as if searching for signs of doubt, but all he found was resolve. "That's what I like about you," he said, a hint of admiration creeping into his tone. "You're stronger than you look." The compliment sent warmth spreading through her, and for a moment, it felt like the world outside faded away. Clara allowed herself to feel the connection that had grown between them, the magnetic pull that was impossible to ignore. She stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. "What about us, Luca? Where do we stand in all of this?" He hesitated, the shadows of his past flickering in his eyes. "You're not just a part of my world now, you're a target because of it." His words were heavy with sincerity. "I can't let anything happen to you." Clara's breath caught in her throat. She had never expected to find herself in such a situation, entangled with a man whose life was filled with danger and secrets. But standing in front of him, she felt a fierce desire to protect him as well. "I want to help you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I won't back down." Luca stepped forward, the intensity of his gaze locking onto hers. "This isn't a game, Clara. People die in my world. I've seen it, I've lost friends. I don't want to lose you." The sincerity in his voice struck a chord deep within her, and she felt a rush of emotion. "You won't lose me," she promised, her voice unwavering. "I choose to be here." In that moment, something shifted between them, a silent agreement forged in the face of adversity. They were in this together, bound by circumstances neither had anticipated. Clara reached out, her fingers brushing against his forearm, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath the tailored fabric of his shirt. "We can face this together," she whispered, her heart pounding with the weight of her words. Luca's expression softened, and Clara could sense the vulnerability beneath his hardened exterior. "I don't want you to get hurt," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't deny the connection between us. It's real." The air crackled with tension as Clara leaned in closer, her heart racing with anticipation. "Then let's see where it takes us," she suggested, her voice steady despite the chaos of emotions swirling within her. "We can be a team." He searched her eyes, weighing her words with the seriousness they deserved. "You have no idea what you're asking for," he replied, his tone a mix of caution and admiration. "Maybe I don't," she admitted, "but I know what I feel. And I'm done hiding from it." The moment hung heavy in the air, filled with possibilities. Clara could see the conflict in Luca's eyes, the battle between his instincts to protect her and the undeniable chemistry that drew them closer together. It was a dance of danger and desire, and she was ready to embrace it. "Very well," he finally said, a hint of a smile breaking through his usually stern demeanor. "But if we're doing this, you have to promise me something." "What's that?" Clara asked, curiosity piqued. "Promise me you'll stay close, no matter what happens. Trust me when I say things will get complicated." "I promise," she replied, feeling a surge of determination. "I won't leave your side." Luca's eyes softened, and in that moment, they both understood the weight of their newfound bond. They weren't just two people drawn together by circumstances, they were partners, united in a world filled with shadows and light. As Clara leaned closer, the distance between them vanished, leaving only the warmth of their shared resolve. Let us know what you think. Comment below, like this video, and subscribe for more captivating stories, she thought, their journey just beginning, filled with love and uncertainty. The night stretched before them, vast and unknown, but together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Clara and Luca stood at the edge of their newfound reality, the weight of their decisions hanging in the air like the smoke from a distant fire. The world around them had changed in ways they never imagined, and the bond they had forged was now a shield against the chaos that threatened to tear them apart. They had faced danger together, and it had transformed them both in ways they were only beginning to understand. As they walked side by side through the vibrant streets of the city, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over everything. Clara glanced at Luca, his strong profile silhouetted against the fading light. He had always seemed untouchable, a figure of power and mystery, but now he felt like someone she could reach out to in the dark. The complexities of their relationship hung between them, blending the thrill of danger with the warmth of connection, and Clara felt a surge of determination to navigate this path together. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a question that echoed with uncertainty, but also with hope. She had spent too long feeling adrift, and now, standing beside Luca, she realized that she wanted to carve out a future, one that included him. Luca stopped, turning to face her fully. His eyes searched hers, looking for the truth beneath her words. "We take it one step at a time," he replied, his voice steady. "I'll show you my world, but you have to promise to stay close. There are forces at play that you wouldn't believe, and I won't have you caught in the crossfire." Clara nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. "I'll stay close," she promised, her heart racing. But I want to be part of this. I want to understand everything, the risks, the stakes. I don't want to hide from the truth anymore. A flicker of admiration crossed Luca's face, and for a moment, his stoic demeanor softened. You're braver than you know, he said, his tone almost reverent. Most people would run at the first sign of trouble. But you're willing to stand by me, and that means more than you can imagine. Clara felt warmth spread through her at his words. She had never considered herself courageous, she had always thought of herself as the ordinary girl with dreams of a simple life. But with Luca, everything felt different. The thrill of being with him imbued her with a strength she didn't know she possessed. Then let's do this, she said, her voice firm. Let's face whatever comes our way together. As they continued walking, Luca began to share more about his life, the intricacies of the world he inhabited. Clara listened intently, absorbing every detail. He spoke about the responsibilities he bore, the weight of leadership that pressed down on his shoulders, and the sacrifices he had made to protect those he cared about. It was a glimpse into a world filled with power struggles and unspoken rules, and she felt a shiver of both fear and excitement. Most people only see the glitz and glamour, Luca said, his voice laced with bitterness. They don't understand the darkness that lurks beneath. It's not just about money and influence, it's about survival. Clara nodded, her resolve tightening. I want to understand it all. I want to be there for you, Luca. I don't want you to carry this burden alone. He paused, looking deeply into her eyes. You have no idea what you're asking for, he said, but there was no anger in his voice, only a quiet intensity. This life, it changes you. I've seen good people turn into something unrecognizable because they couldn't handle it. I'm not afraid, Clara replied, her gaze unwavering. I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. I choose this, and I choose you. A flicker of something passed over Luca's face, hope, perhaps, mixed with apprehension. If we're going to do this, I need you to promise me one more thing, he said, taking a step closer. What is it? She asked, her heart quickening at the proximity between them. Promise me that no matter what happens, you won't lose yourself in this. Always remember who you are. Your strength is what drew me to you in the first place. Clara swallowed hard, the gravity of his words settling in her chest. I promise. I won't let this change me in ways I can't control. Luca took her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. Then we'll face this together, he said, his voice low and serious. But be prepared. There will be challenges that test us both. We can't afford to falter. As they stood there, hand in hand, Clara felt an electric charge between them, a shared understanding that they were embarking on a journey fraught with danger but also filled with the possibility of love. Their lives may have begun in starkly different worlds, but now, they were intertwined, and Clara felt a sense of belonging that she had longed for. The future ahead was uncertain, but as long as they faced it together, she knew they could handle whatever life threw their way. Let us know what you think. Comment below, like this video, and subscribe for more captivating stories, she thought, knowing that their adventure together was just beginning, and the city around them pulsed with life and opportunity, waiting to be explored, one step at a time. As the sun dipped below the skyline, Clara and Luca stepped forward, ready to embrace the challenges ahead, united in purpose and passion.